In this lesson, I would like to show you how to solve a quadratic equation by using the quadratic formula. To do that, however, I want to talk about the methods that you've already learned. The first method is to solve the quadratic equation by graphing. And so I've already taken the liberty to punch the into the graphing calculator your equation y equals x squared minus 7x plus 12. And you'll see that it's not so clear to be able to tell what exactly those x-intercepts are. I could certainly zoom in on that and try to identify, but I'm going to show you a second method. The second method is solving by factoring. And so I could list my factor pairs of 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. 3 and 4 do add up to 7. So I would look at that as being x minus 3, x minus 4 equaling 0. So again, this quadratic equation could be rewritten in factored form in this way. Then to follow a step further, you can do the zero product property, which says x minus 3 is equal to 0, or x minus 4 is equal to 0. In this situation, x would be 3, and in this situation, x would be 4. And so if I'm looking at the graph, it would probably be x equals 1, 2, 3. There'd be a solution there, and then x equals 4 would be another one. And so graphically, that's what's going on there. But the third method that I want to show you is the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, in this particular example, I do believe that solving this using factoring is certainly easier than using the quadratic formula, but not all quadratic equations can be factored. And so the quadratic formula is actually a very good method when there isn't another method that is easier. And this one you can use for every quadratic, whereas the factoring method you can only use when it's factorable. Graphing is a little bit more cumbersome, and you might not have a graphing calculator in hand. So there's pros and cons for all of the methods, and there's actually another method that you're going to learn in the next lesson that, again, there are advantages and disadvantages of. And so what I want to do, even though I've already solved this 2 other ways, is I want to show you how the quadratic formula works. And so the first step is to identify your values of a, b, and c. So what you have to remember is it's ax squared plus bx plus c. And so a would be 1, b would be -7, and c would be 12. And so then plugging it into my formula, x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared. And I always like to, instead of put b squared, I usually like to evaluate what b squared is. So -7 squared is 49 minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times 1, which is 2. And then I go, and what you have to be very careful about is order of operations here. And so I know it's going to be 49 minus a number. In this case, it's 49 minus 48. So x is equal to 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 minus 48 all over 2. Taking that a step further, x is equal to 7 plus or minus the square root of 1, which is 1, all over 2. And then write your 2 cases out. It's either 7 plus 1 over 2 or 7 minus 1 over 2. Now, order of operations can get really tricky here. A lot of times students will just punch this into their calculator and end up with the wrong answer. You need to be careful, because if you're putting it into your calculator, you need to be sure you put parentheses around that portion of it. Otherwise, it is going to divide by 2 first, and you'll get the answer wrong every time. So, but I'm going to do this one in my head. 7 plus 1 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And in this one, 7 minus 1 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So just as we had up above, the answers are 4 and 3. I'm going to do 2 more examples in the next video for additional practice.